growth energy, you're cutting it all off and you're going to put your graft on top of that. That's part of the reason why seedling grafting tends to be more successful than just grafting a single branch, because there's nothing else there's nowhere else where the avocado can pump its nutrients in other than just putting up new shoots, and you usually take those off. You've had your hand up for a while, yes?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we have a high winter water table level, like 24 to 18 inches high. Is that pretty much a no-go because it's going to be too hard to keep the roots above like standing water, or are there rootstocks or varieties that would be more tolerant?
Yeah, there are, so since most of us are getting our trees on seedlings, we don't really have control about that. Even when you buy it from a nursery, it's just on a Mexican seedling. You can get grafted rootstocks from some of these growers, but you have to order, oftentimes you're ordering a 20 tree minimum. And you could do that if you have 19 friends, for example. But I have an area where it gets, every winter there's standing water there, but I was like, oh, but it's such a good place otherwise. So I just went up like 2.5 or 3 feet in a raised box, and so its main root ball is always going to be well draining, and I think it's going to be fine. It's still only 5 years old, and it has its first avocado on there now. It's a Stewart, but I would definitely go way up if you have a high water table. Yes, in the blue shirt. Yes.
Okay. We have a ceiling that's about 2 feet tall. But there's leaves all the way down to the base. Do we ever remove any of those leaves, or do we ever clip the top?
So you have a seedling that's 2 feet tall with leaves all the way down to the base, and are you just want to see if it fruits for you over time?
Well, right now it's just, yes, but right now it's just growing.
Leave them. Each one of those leaves is a solar panel, and I wouldn't worry about it in a young seedling like that, because it's going to give you more energy the more leaves you have. Yeah.
And
do
you ever clip the top?
And so clipping the top would be sort of like head training, what you do very classically when you buy like an apple tree or a plum tree. You cut it way down to like knee height so that you get a crotch to develop with like 3 or 4 branches coming out. Most of the time you don't do that with an avocado. It's going to do its own thing. As a young tree, sometimes if you've got this one branch coming way out like this, sometimes you have to start bringing that one back. But in general, you don't need to head a tree until it gets older. And I know I'm answering all these questions, but anyone in this room who's got experience with this, feel free to also keep chiming in. Yes, in the green.
Yes, can you address wind? We live where there's lots of wind.
Wind.
Yes.
Yeah. So growing avocado trees in the wind is tough. The wind dries out the leaves, and so you're losing more moisture. And also, if you have a heavy branch with lots of fruit, you're more likely for it to break in the wind as well. So the desiccation and the breaking. And so try to find a place that is a natural windbreak. Plant a windbreak of a whole bunch of trees, but that's a little excessive. Other ideas? I think you just have to find the least windy place on your property, and you can try it in a container with the caveats that we've mentioned, but it's a little bit trickier in the winter.
You need to put a
Structure, like your house as a block?
Yeah, using the house as a natural block. What was that?
or a Zutano,
The Zutano just being tougher.
windbreak, for the windbreak.
Oh, yeah. So the Zutano, which is edible and considered a good fruit, but maybe not an excellent fruit. So you could put a Zutano on the wind side, and then put a smaller tree with better flavor closer in.
Another idea is planting a nurse tree. So if you have something that's leguminous, fast growing, you could just plant that there, and that'll kind of create a little micro habitat. You could plant another tree under with the plan to cut the nurse tree down later once your tree's more established.
Yeah. So thank you, Nick. So a nurse tree is just something that kind of nurses your other thing along for some time, and then you get rid of it. It's not a perfect example to human nurses, for example, but you use them while you need them. Is probably a better way to say it. We have nurses in the room, so Nick, what would you recommend for a good Sonoma County nurse tree for shade or for wind protection and stuff?
My
favorite is one that's not easy to get. It's called a Tagasaci, but you can also do like a black locust. That'll give you a nice pull when it's done. Paulownia tree, same thing, very fast growing, nitrogen fixing. Those are the ones that come to mind.
Paulownia and a black locust. And what was the first one you said?
Tagasaci.
Agathastes. I don't know that one.
It's a leguminous tree. People kind of use it like a perennial alfalfa. It makes fertilizer and stuff. It's a really nice tree and it grows really fast.
Grows fast, nice tree. Okay, let's see, was it in the back?
Can you do a cleft graft on an avocado trunk?
So how big is the trunk you're thinking about?
3 inches, let's say.
Yeah, so a cleft graft, for folks who don't know, is where you make your cut on your rootstock and then you make a cut down the middle or kind of along the side of it. That's called a cleft graft. A couple of ways that you can do. 3 inches is a little bit big. Some people on that would do a bark graft. Or other people would try a cleft and would try to and make sure that you protect the cut edges really well because that's because of loss of moisture there. So something that big, would most of you guys do bark or? Probably. But I think there's a really nice handbook that was done. It's like handbook for avocado propagation. I have it on my laptop. I can show it to you. But basically, it's like the handbook from the 80s, and I think they were still doing a bunch of cleft stuff in the field. So it's probably worth it. You just need a bigger, meatier scion, so it's less, so it can kind of take I think a little bit better. If you were doing like a little, if your rootstock was smaller, you can get away with a smaller scion. Great question. Thank you.
I see in the nurseries that there's different size avocado trees that you can buy. Do you have a recommendation you buy is larger better, like rather than like a bare root tree seems to be better? Is there any comparison there? What do you recommend?
It's a good question. The question is, if you're at the nursery and you see a 5-gallon, a 15-gallon, and what are those boxes like? 24. So the main consideration is money, is price. Your reference to bare roots, oftentimes we recommend getting a bare root deciduous fruit tree and let it kind of establish. It's cheaper, they tend to do better than something you buy in a box or in a pot. You don't have that option for an avocado. I think most of us end up buying those that come in the 5 gallons, which are about somewhere around $50 to $65. I have a friend who got 2 big boxes from a well-known nursery in the East Bay, and he put them in a Hass and a Fuerte here in Santa Rosa, and they're doing fine, but they were, I don't remember how much, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were $300 each or something like that. And he's probably had about 8 fruits from it, so it's gonna be a little while before he makes his money back. But yeah, so I don't know. You do have to baby the young trees more, but most of us don't plant and walk away. Most of us who are trying avocados in Sonoma County are ready to baby the trees a bit.
You talked a little bit about defoliating. Can you talk a little bit more about that? We have a bacon that is probably 8 feet high that fruited and was happy, and then all the leaves went away, and now it's just really struggling. There's actually some black branches.
Okay, so the question is, with a bacon tree in the Santa Rosa area, has fruited 8 feet tall, but has lost all of its leaves and is struggling in some blackness on the branches. So they're not usually completely deciduous under good conditions in Northern California. They're usually partially deciduous. So you'll see this time of year, as the new leaves are coming up, the new leaves are standing straight up and they look healthy, and the old leaves often look sad and changing colors and are dropping. That's pretty normal. Losing all of the leaves makes me worry about gophers or the fertilizer emitter, the irrigation emitter got clogged, or something like that. The blackness on the branches in a fairly naked tree probably means sunburn. So if I was in that situation, I would, rock the tree a little bit, make sure it still feels solid and that the root ball wasn't eaten by gophers. I would, is there gopher activity around it? I would double check that the irrigation is working, and then I would put shade cloth over it. I'd paint the branches, and hope for the best. Good question.
Is the little cotton that seems to get a lot of press, what kind of bag is if you don't want a big huge tree, or is it not really going to be satisfying?
It's a good question. So this was a question about what about the little cotto, also known as a wirtz? Is that worth going for so that you don't have to worry about keeping a big tree pruned and things like that? So who in the room has eaten a little cotto, a wirtz? Anyone had one of those fruits? Yeah, would you? Yeah.
Yeah, somebody else wants
Go
to
ahead.
share. I would put it like in the middle of fruit quality. It's like not great, but they're decent if that's what you want to grow and you got a little bit of space. But the tree kind of has a weeping habit. I know a guy that's got like a dozen of them in Rincon Valley, and he just kind of stakes them up to the height that he wants, and then lets them flop and grow from there. And they do pretty well to make a lot of fruit.
Yeah, I would say the same as kind of a little better in the bacon, just not as good as Pinkerton, Reed, Lamb, or Carmen. Like it's just, but in Hawaii they like them a lot, so it's making me. And I guess they grow them in Florida too, so I'm thinking different places they might taste better. Depending on the location. So Hawaii, they say, oh, those are great. I'm like, oh, words, like, okay.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. So you won't hear most, if you look it up online. So this is what I'll do when I'm thinking about one that I haven't heard about. I'll say like taste test on YouTube, taste test of little cotto. And there are some great YouTube channels that have wonderful, helpful taste testing. It gives you an idea, especially if you're going to someone who is trusted, that you've seen a lot. Like, I don't just trust someone who's doing a one-off and I don't know that channel at all, but what's the name of the channel that, Greg, that you know about that has the great tasting on it?
My channel now, it's the Avocado Fan.
The Avocado Fan is what it is on YouTube. That's a good one. And then Greg Alder's posts on the Yard Post. Also, he does a lot of taste testing and description. And that can help you a little bit on that. But I agree that if you want a smaller tree that is like super delicious, but maybe needs a little bit more frost protection, a Jim or a Gwyn would be better tasting than a little cotto, most people would say. Jim is capital GEM. It stands for Great Edward Martin, the person who took care of that tree in the yard and in the orchard, and it is very similar to a Hass. The Gwyn tastes similar, but it's green-skinned at maturity.
So I'm above Rincon Valley, up in the mountains, so our property goes from about 700 to 1,000 feet up, and we're west facing. We have a lot of land, but we do get a lot of frost in the winter. So are there any varieties that might?
So you're at some elevation in Santa Rosa. It gets frosty there. I mean, I haven't protected. Now I know we've had a couple of mild winters recently, but things like the Mexicola Grande and bacon, I haven't put any frost protection on them. They're like 6 years old, 6 to 7 years old. I haven't seen a single leaf that I can remember that was hurt from frost over the last 3 winters, maybe. And so they really are pretty tough. I thought I was going to have to put a frost blanket on forever, but for those, I've been quite surprised.
Bonnie Doon might be well.
So that Bonnie Doon, which was in that picture with the snow on it, is tough. The other one that I have tasted, that I just have a little one of, that was excellent and also supposed to be really tough, is called Palo de Oro, or branch of gold, or stick of gold. Wow, that was really good, and it's supposed to be great for both cold and heat.
And the De Arturo.
And the Arturo, which we mentioned as well, that's another one. So that's D''Arturo, A-R-T-U-R-O. And you can find all those if you just search them online, Arturo, Palo d'Oro. Yes.
So if you are buying new trees, say from a good nursery like in the center, how long will it take before you can actually see fruit?
That's a good question. So if you buy like a typical size tree from a great nursery, how long before you see fruit? My experience from when I what I've read and what I've seen online is that Southern California you'll see fruit so much quicker, right? And so they're like, yeah, you know, in the trials that you see trials in Irvine, like year 1 they'd have about 50 fruit, year 2 in the ground they'd have like 75 to 100. Like I have a 7-year-old tree, and I think I've had like 14 as my largest harvest. They know how to grow an avocado tree better than I do, for sure. They've dialed in the irrigation and all this kind of stuff, but the growing conditions are just much better down there. And so, at least that makes me feel better when I say that it's not all my fault. But, so I would say I'd like to hear from the room here, but most of us have seen avocados that hold the maturity 4 to 6 years.
Yeah, that's about right. And the other thing I would recommend, like I've had trees that were very, you know, eager to fruit, and I've actually picked the fruit off or broken off the flowers just to give them more time to size up as a tree. And usually once they're about my height, which is a little over 6 feet, I just start letting it do its thing, and it'll kind of selectively fruit from there, and then you're off to the races.
So did you ever hear that? Picking off some small fruit when they're 6 feet tall or so. If you're 4 feet tall, then maybe you can wait until they're 4 feet tall. Get them a year earlier. Let's see, you and then you.
Do you recommend any mycorrhizal fungi or companion plants?
Interesting question. So there's a company down in Southern California with an owner named Gary Matsuoka, I think is his name, and when they will transplant a sleeve tree, so something just about this big, the root mass is just about that big, to a 5-gallon, he says he throws in some fertilizer that has mycorrhizae in it, and he thinks that helps with the establishment. I don't know about if there's been trials done on that. If you're planting in the soil, you don't need to add mycorrhiza. Most people say you don't have to worry about adding mycorrhiza because there's mycorrhiza already in your soil. But if you're just thinking about going from one pot to another pot, then maybe mycorrhiza helps. But I can't say that based on evidence.
Just real quick, will the deer eat the leaves?
Deers will eat the leaves. Yeah, deers will eat the leaves. Say it again?
As will chickens.
As will chickens. And so, yeah, you'll need to do some sort of protection. Yes?
2 quick questions. One is, when you're saying the brand of Mexicola Grande, is that the rootstock and the fruit? And then 2, is it good to have chickens, or what's compatible to have with the trees out there that's pretty natural?
Sure. Okay, so question is Mexicola Grande. So that is the top part of the scion, the fruiting part. And if you're buying that at a nursery selling to home growers, then it's probably on some sort of a Mexican genetic seed like a Zutano, but you never know. They don't. When you buy a peach tree at a local place like Harmony or others, they also say the rootstock is this and the top is this. When you buy an avocado at the garden center, that usually just says what the top is. And so does Mexicola Grande, for example, which is a good one. And then the second part of your question was, would it be helpful to have like chickens or geese or ducks or whatever?
What's compatible for natural livestock?
I can say one thing about chickens. Avocados, like especially the leaves and the skins, they have a compound called persin, which is toxic to chickens. I had an avocado tree near a chicken run. I lost one of my favorite chickens because she just indulged heavily on avocado leaves. So yeah,
It's toxic to
in your chickens.
That's good to know. Thank you. I didn't know that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have experience of any kind of livestock around an avocado. The other part about avocados is that because they have those really superficial feeder roots that don't compete well with weeds and don't want to be disturbed with rototilling, they probably wouldn't love chickens doing a whole lot of scratching around them too.
I will also note, deer love them, so you gotta protect them from deer.
Cool. Yes, in the back.
Do you irrigate the tree for the life of the tree, or will it
start to live on its own?
It's a great question. So do you need to irrigate the tree for the life of the tree or not? So definitely you have to irrigate forever if it's in a pot, if it's in the ground, definitely when it's young. When it gets big enough, oftentimes, so you're talking about a 20-year-old tree that's 30 feet tall, its roots have found other places that are getting irrigation, like in an urban environment, is probably what it is. When on some of these trees that you see in like a parking lot, I don't know, like if second red, if they're watering some bush next to it and it's in that or what, I don't know. They can theoretically, you don't have to water them, but it's oftentimes because they're in a garden setting and they found other places where there's a water source. I don't know about like just a field with absolutely no irrigation. In our climate, I don't know. Like a fig could do that and a pomegranate could do that, but I don't know about avocado.
I know of one or two in that kind of condition, and they're alive, but they don't fruit. Like, I think they need a little bit more water to make fruit.
Okay, yeah, so he said alive but not fruiting in that situation.
The roots tend to grow more out rather than down?
They do both. The roots grow out and superficially as feeders, and then they also have a tap root that goes down. But the general wisdom seems to be if you have 3 feet for the tap root to go down, that's about all you need, even though it's a 20-foot tall tree. I don't know if at the bottom, like if it was cement, you'd be okay, but like as far as good soil, 3 feet is pretty good. Yeah. Yes.
How big will a container avocado get?
How big of a container do you need for an avocado, or how big will a tree get in a container?
Yeah, how big should be a container?
So for container growing, and you can go online and see a couple of people who are doing that, who are really trying this in their home setting, but probably the minimum to where you're going to get decent fruit is probably 25 gallon container. The problem is that it gets really hard to up-pot from a 20 or 25, right? Like I can go from a 5 gallon to a 15 gallon by myself. Going from a 15 gallon, like I need help, and then you just kind of give up because it's so heavy. And then, you can, for fruiting trees in containers, you can root prune. I don't have any personal experience root pruning an avocado, so I don't know. They can get tall, they can get big in a 20 gallon, they'll probably be 10 feet tall or so, they'll get big. So I can't say for avocados specifically, but in general, fruit trees, once they get pretty root bound and it's more root than soil, and then they put out less and less every year, less likely to flower, less likely to put out vegetative growth. And people grow stuff in hydroponics where there's no soil, but it's very difficult to keep things really happy in a pot after much time. Yes, sir.
So to answer that question, I have one now that's probably 10 foot. I started growing it from a seed just to say, could I? And I have. So I started it in a wine barrel and got to the point where the wine barrel was starting to deteriorate, and I don't want the tree to die. So I was looking all around trying to find what's the next container. And the problem with the containers is it's going to deteriorate over time, so you're really only buying yourself the next 2 or 3 years. So what I ended up doing is I needed to move the tree from the backyard to the front to get it to the point where I needed more sunlight. But I'm in the Rincon Valley area and I have clay that's about 3 foot directly down. So what I did is I tamped the ground and I went to Home Depot and bought some circular bricks. And what I did is I just built up with the bricks as make my container size as big as I want, put the tree inside, and that's where I'm at now. It's really 3 foot above the 3 foot of the ground, so really I got 6 foot of distance for that feeder root. But with the brick, I'm not worried about it deteriorating, so really I'm at that point. So what you gotta think about is whatever container you're gonna put it into, you're only buying yourself until that next container.
Yeah, and some people will put it in a container. Thank you. We'll put it in a container, and we'll put it in a place where they wouldn't mind the tree growing once the container breaks apart, or once the taproot breaks through the bottom of the container. Yes.
So with the trees, how do you deal with the deer?
Say that again.
How do you deal with deer? He's in Rico Valley, I'm in Rico
How do you deal with deer?
Yeah.
It's got to be fencing is pretty much it. Mountain lion. That's what, I was just repeating what he said.
I have this avocado that was grown from a seedling, and then you chopped it off. It's in this small container. How much water, how often do you water an avocado?
The question is how often do you water an avocado, and that differs a lot whether you're talking about in a container or in the soil. There are on Greg Alder's post, he has a nice table on how much to water in-ground stuff in Southern California, and then you can modify it because we're not quite as dry as they are and hot as they are in Southern California. But in a container, it's a little bit easier. If it's soggy, don't water it. Wait until it starts to get a little bit dry, and then you water it again. And if that's going to be different in February than it is in July, and if it's been windy or if it's been still, or if it's I got behind on watering already, probably on one of my trees that's in a 3x3 raised box on my driveway, because it was so hot this last week, right? And I probably should have been watering it more. So there's so many varieties, but in general, you want it moist, but not soggy. They used to flood irrigate orchards so that they would, literally flood the trees, and then they'd be too wet for a day or 2 or 3, and then they'd be too dry for the last couple of days before they flood them again. And so then they moved more towards even every day or every other day watering, but much less. And so you can water an avocado every day, but it's got to. But that's when how well is it draining and stuff comes into play.
You might address this. I want to put mine in my raised bed. It's about that size right now. It's in a pot, and I want it to, since it's already 3 feet. I'm wondering, can I keep it at 10 feet maybe, and will it still fruit enough? You might know.
Do you know what kind of it? So the question is, I'm going to plant a tree in a raised bed. How big will it get, and will it still fruit? Do you know if it's a seedling or is it a?
I started from seed.
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's from seed. So and are you thinking about grafting it someday, or just seeing what it does?
I'm sorry.
Are you thinking about trying to get it grafted? No. Okay, so we have no idea, because you have a unique tree that no one else in the world has. Even if it was a Hass pit, it might be similar, or it might be very different, or it might never fruit, and it might grow tall, or it might grow wide, you never know. But planting in a raised bed tends to be a good way to do it, because it's got great soil, it's going to drain well.
But it's going to get so tall. I mean, if I want to keep it at no lower than 10 feet.
Is that 10 feet from the soil level, or 10 feet from the ground?
From the soil level. So
Yeah, it should. You could get it to fruit at 10 and get it to fruit at 10 at your average avocado tree. I just can't say specifically for that type.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. In the back, and then you, sir.
When you're building a mound to plant on, would it be good to mix in some coarse sand?
Right. So it depends on what your native soil that you're mounding up is. For example, so say if you're on decent soil, then you can just mound up and not add anything. If you're on clay, then you're probably bringing in soil, and you can either kind of make your own mix buy some, go to one of these places where they'll dump it in your truck, and either buy something that's already pre-mixed, or buy a bunch of loam, and then buy some sand, and buy some lava rock, and buy some pumice and some perlite, and there's something that's going to keep it draining well. Then it just gets more expensive and more time involved and stuff.
Yeah, I'm in Roseville, between Sacramento and Auburn. A little drier, maybe a little hotter than here. Mexicola grande tree, been in the ground about 8 years, and get about 10 fruit the last couple of years. And I understand that maybe it's not quite mature yet, or the other thing is maybe it's not pollinating, and I've read, maybe it's a wives' tale, about spraying it with dilute honey.
Right.
And will that attract bees? Is that okay for bees? Does it work?
Yeah, so for a Mexican, Mexico Grande, 8 foot, or 10, how tall?
Probably about 15 feet.
15 feet, 8 years, giving about 10 fruit. Can we expect more? Should we spray it with a dilute honey spray? If it gives you a ton of flowers, so I would recommend, there's that, again, Greg Alder has a nice post calling something about how to get more fruit, and he breaks it down to how to get more flowers and how to get more fruit. Very nice post. But basically, you want to see if you're getting a ton of flowers, which it sounds like you are. Then the next question is, so it probably wouldn't give you a ton of flowers if you weren't giving it enough sun. So it sounds like it's getting enough sun. The big question is pollinators and watering. So if it's making a bunch of fruitlets, tiny little pea things, and it keeps dropping 99% of them, then one possibility is that it's either getting too hot or too dry in the soil, because it might realize that's not going to be able to support more than it does in fruit if it's not wet enough, for example.
Okay.
But take a look at that post and he goes with that one.
Would pruning it keep
Prune after
into less tree help in that regard, maybe?
The general idea with pruning is to prune after it tries to set fruit, right? Because then you're not going to accidentally prune off any fruit that is trying to form. So wait until, depending on what your tree is, but if it's like mine, it'll probably be in like May when you're seeing the fruits stick around, and then prune preferentially branches that don't have the fruits on it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to pause for the questions because we're at 3:40.
One question though about fertilizing, because
Yes.
are you fertilizing your tree?
Probably not as much as I should.
Do you need to?
I mean, it's probably 3 times a year, but I've heard like you should do it every 6 weeks.
Yeah, so there are multiple theories on the best way to fertilize. Some people say if you hit them with a ton of nitrogen during flowering, that it will promote too much leaf growth and it will deter fruiting. And so maybe do less nitrogen and do it more often. But there's debate if that's always true, and most of us probably aren't giving as much nitrogen as what like an orchardist would be giving them. But you could do a soil test around it if you wanted to send off, a $40 test for that. You could just add some stuff with some nitrogen and some zinc. Those are the ones that tend to go short on avocados. Add compost and mulch, and it's probably going to be fine. Okay, so now we're going to, number one, thank you so much for all your questions. And I wish you all a whole lot of luck in growing. I want to thank especially to Nick and to Evan who answered so many other questions as well. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do like a little grafting demo and a little exchange of science. So if anyone has a seedling tree and they feel ready to graft